A bitter, snow-covered night in Canton, Massachusetts. The biting New England cold was draped over a quiet suburban street, completely hiding what would soon become a grim and shocking discovery. What first looked like a tragic, confusing death in the early morning hours quickly mutated into one of the most closely watched, fiercely debated criminal investigations in recent American history. You know, in our justice system, most criminal cases just fade from the headlines after a verdict is reached. The gavel falls, the cameras pack up, and the public moves on. But this one didn't. Years later, the Karen Read case is still making national news. It's fueling intense legal battles and deeply dividing public opinion across the entire country. We are looking at a narrative that simply refuses to close, a mystery that continues to evolve with every single passing day, drawing millions into its complex web.
There's a really profound observation about this case, and it hits the nail on the head regarding why it's still so captivating. For many people, a courtroom verdict marks the end of a story. In the Karen Read case, it became the beginning of a new chapter. We're conditioned to expect finality. We expect a trial to answer our lingering questions and put a definitive period at the end of a very dark sentence. But here, instead of fading away, the case found a completely new life. It transformed from a local tragedy into a national obsession.
So you really have to ask yourself, why does this case refuse to end? What keeps pulling it back into the courtroom? And why are millions of people still fiercely searching for answers? To understand how a single investigation transformed into an ongoing national controversy, we have to go back to the very beginning. We have to strip away the internet noise, the media frenzy, the wild speculation, and look directly at the undisputed timeline of that tragic night.
Let's walk through exactly what we know happened on January 29th. It started as a totally typical evening. A night out with friends, some drinks, socializing, the exact kind of night that happens thousands of times a weekend without incident. In the early hours of the morning, Boston police officer John O'Keefe was dropped off outside a private home in Canton. And then came the morning. As a massive winter storm continued to dump freezing snow onto the region, emergency responders were rushed to the scene. Officer O'Keefe was found completely unresponsive, buried in the snow outside that very same house. Despite frantic, desperate medical efforts to save him, he later died from his traumatic injuries. A dedicated police officer was dead, and investigators immediately began working to find out exactly how a night of celebration ended in such a chilling tragedy.
Section 1. The prosecution's case.
The focus of law enforcement soon zeroed in on the last person known to be with him. The person who drove him to that home? Karen Read, Officer O'Keefe's girlfriend at the time. The official theory presented by the state is straightforward, but it carries immense, devastating weight. Now, it is absolutely crucial to remember these are allegations. Prosecutors allege that after dropping him off outside the Canton home, Read reversed her vehicle, striking Officer O'Keefe with the rear of her SUV. They claim she then drove away, leaving him deeply incapacitated in the freezing snow as the winter storm raged on. To back up these life-altering claims, prosecutors point to a specific trail of evidence. They rely on forensic findings from the vehicle, digital records tracking movements, and standard investigative procedures. Their position from day one has been unwavering. They believe when all this evidence is put together, it paints a clear and undeniable picture of guilt.
But that wasn't the end of the story. Soon after the charges were laid, investigators discovered something unexpected. A defense team that was ready to meticulously dismantle every single piece of that official narrative. So we have to ask, is the evidence actually as clear-cut as the prosecution claims? Or did authorities rush to judgment in the tragic death of a fellow officer, missing crucial details in the process?
Section 2. The defense fights back.
Facing the full weight of the state's legal machinery, Karen Read has consistently and fiercely denied the allegations, maintaining her absolute innocence. The defense hasn't just politely disagreed. They have aggressively attacked the very foundation of the investigation. They're heavily challenging the interpretation of the physical evidence, arguing the forensic footprint doesn't even match a vehicular strike. They're rigorously scrutinizing witness credibility, asking if the testimonies from that night truly hold up under pressure. And they are going hard after the overall handling of the investigation by local police, arguing that standard procedures were completely ignored. On top of that, they're demanding a much closer look at the digital records, insisting that highly plausible alternative explanations for Officer O'Keefe's death were just brushed aside by authorities who had already made up their minds.
This right here brilliantly illustrates the core conflict of the entire saga. We are looking at the exact same forensic data, the exact same digital records, and the exact same tragic crime scene being interpreted in two vastly different, utterly irreconcilable ways. The prosecution looks at the case file and sees a clear, consistent story of vehicular manslaughter. The defense looks at that exact same file and sees an investigation that jumped to conclusions way too quickly, tunnel-visioned on one suspect, and left massive, glaring questions completely unanswered. Two opposing realities built from the exact same pieces of evidence.
Millions of Americans have watched every hearing, analyzed every witness testimony, and debated every new piece of evidence, just waiting for the legal system to finally break the tie. But what happens when the legal system fails to provide a definitive, universally accepted answer? What happens when two fiercely opposed narratives clash with such intensity and literally neither side is willing to back down even an inch?
Section 3. The Never-Ending Trial.
What happened next surprised everyone. Most people expected the story to end once the initial courtroom proceedings reached their natural conclusion. Instead, the story refused to die. The battle lines were drawn deeper, and the case evolved into a new, complex phase. As we look at the aftermath, it's absolutely vital to separate the confirmed legal reality from the swirling vortex of public speculation. On one hand, we have confirmed court actions. These are the documented realities keeping the legal machinery moving: new legal filings, ongoing litigation, and heavily attended public hearings. But on the other hand, we have the fiercely disputed allegations that keep adding fuel to the fire. Things like the deeply debated interpretation of forensics, the exact minute-by-minute timeline, and the reliability of witness accounts. While claims circulate wildly online, building an entire ecosystem of rumors, it's only the evidence presented through the actual legal process that can establish the facts. But let's be honest, a captivated public isn't waiting for the court to decide.
That's when everything changed. The legal battle exploded far beyond the walls of the courthouse. It expanded directly into the digital town square, dominating social media feeds, spawning dedicated true crime podcasts, and taking over nightly national news programs. The public's appetite for true crime and amateur sleuthing found its ultimate outlet right here. Every new filing, every minor hearing generates another massive wave of headlines. Court documents are being downloaded in real time and analyzed line by legal commentators and everyday citizens alike. Supporters on both sides are constantly searching for tiny, hidden clues they believe strengthen their position. What might normally be a dry, routine legal procedure has literally become front-page, breaking news because the public remains deeply emotionally invested in discovering what truly happened in the snow that night.
And that leaves a massive shadow hanging over every single new legal maneuver. With every document filed, every public hearing scheduled, and every online debate sparked, we have to wonder, is each new courtroom battle actually moving us closer to the objective truth? Or is this relentless legal and public scrutiny simply adding another impenetrable layer of confusion to a mystery that just refuses to disappear?
Section 4. The Search for Truth.
To understand the true weight of the Karen Read case, we really have to pull back and look at the big picture. Because this is no longer just about one tragic, freezing night in Massachusetts. It is transformed into a glaring mirror reflecting much larger, deeply rooted societal issues that affect every single one of us. This prosecution has ignited fierce national debates that go way beyond guilt or innocence. It's forcing us to question the bedrock of modern investigations, the reliability of forensic science, and exactly how digital evidence is extracted and interpreted. It's put a massive magnifying glass on local police investigative procedures, demanding higher transparency and stricter accountability. It's shown us the immense, sometimes overwhelming impact of modern media coverage on high-profile trials. But most importantly, it sparked a really uncomfortable conversation about public trust in the criminal justice system itself. Because when millions of people can look at the exact same evidence and arrive at vastly different conclusions, it exposes just how fragile our collective trust in that system truly is.
The Karen Read case has become far more than a criminal prosecution. It's a sprawling national conversation about truth, systemic accountability, and the absolute limits of the justice system itself. Years after that cold, snowy morning in Canton, the profound tragedy of Officer John O'Keefe's death remains wrapped in a relentless legal war that shows absolutely no signs of stopping. As the legal filings continue to mount, as online sleuths dissect every new detail, and as the public debate rages on across the country, we are left with one lingering, inescapable question. Can a case this controversial and this deeply divided ever truly reach a final, satisfying ending? Or will the search for answers continue long after the final gavel has fallen?